Right, we are recording, and yes, I'm back to this shirt because it's too warm to wear the other. I think I did mention the whole when I wasn't wearing this and not wearing the Sigma by Sigma pin that I'm very proud of, even though it has a little to do with this. It's still I'm proud of it. I have an excuse to wear it, so I'm wearing it. Yeah, it's just too warm today to wear that one. Okay, so chapter 11. So I just before getting into that, I wanted to kind of step back. So this is part two. What have they been calling it? What's it been titled? For Revenge of the Sith. The first part, I so much of that I hated. This one, Seduction. Part two, Seduction. I'm just thus far, I don't think it is provoking me hatred. Like how I was hating the first part. Which I'm pretty sure was titled Victory. I still do think that there's plenty in here that, including this chapter, there's poor writing, or at least poor construction of the story. Might be another way to put it, might be a better way to put it. It still definitely has faults, but it's not as triggering for me. It doesn't provoke me as much, but it could also just be I'm already checked out. Could be that too. Alright, but I did just want to acknowledge that. Anyway, I just realized I completely used the wrong word right there. Okay, so various things happen in this. One is we have the council, the Jedi Council, talking amongst themselves about the order has come down that Palpatine, now in charge of the Jedi, wants Anakin as his personal representative on the council. And so they are debating this. I do think that there's one thing that should have been said once Anakin gets into the room, but let's set that aside for a moment. Because that comes up later. It is troubling, this, because the Jedi are essentially talking about being dishonest. And yet none of them really speak up to say that that's what we do. It's... Hang on, I feel like there was a line specifically that I could read to help capture that, but not really. It seems if any of them have that kind of disagreement with it, they don't word it like that. They don't just say that how can we lie to him, kind of thing. How can we try to manipulate him without his knowledge? Which would mean it's not manipulation, but still. I mean, it's like, how can we be this dishonest? No one seems to ask that question. And I wish that one did. Because even if it were then the rest of them were to reject it, reject that criticism as a, well, no, we must do this, it is that important, which they can do, it's like they're not even cognizant of the fact that they are kind of betraying the ideals that the Jedi are supposed to have and represent. But it also has Mace suggesting that he and Yoda should be sent out of the temple, or at least one of them. Ends up being Yoda, who will go to Kashyyyk because they need some help, and he's got a good relationship with the Wookiees. Sorry, my eyes are just really sore. But why is kind of the question, kind of the issue that I have here, is it talks about how, yes, we should go out, and it's like, no, we shouldn't have both of you go. It's like, why actually aren't they out there? I was like, Yoda and he and Mace are both very powerful. At one point, it's even said, Anakin suggests that Mace is jealous, and that's why Mace doesn't want Anakin to become a master, because supposedly he's the youngest master in history of the Order. Which this would not be true. Obi-Wan calls him out on that, but it still is. If they're this powerful, why are they sitting back in the temple? Which there is that element of, and I know I've talked talked about plenty of times before with the Tolkien stuff, there is that element of the Jedi do seem misplaced in their purpose, in their principles. That it should be well, yes, of course we will, like every warrior here, because some are, like the Archivist, should be a competent warrior, but might not be a very good one. But them, like, emptying out the temple to go and try to end this war sooner makes sense. That would be consistent with what their principles are, but at the same time, they don't really seem to be obeying those. And it's just, I'd like it if there was some explanation, even if it were just well, no, we must always have, let's say, 3 Jedi Council level Jedi Masters in the temple, even just, it could even be 1 member of the council and then some number of masters there, so that if, basic continuity of government kind of thing, where if the others were lost, you still have those who can lead the Jedi Order. It's like, that would be fun, but there's no discussion of that. There's no explanation for why some of the most powerful and likely also effective warriors and leaders are not being warriors and not being leaders. And it's kind of a problem. One thing that's also interesting in their discussion is that they both recognize that an issue with Anakin is he basically wears his emotions on his sleeve. I think it was Obi-Wan who did put it aloud that he might as well just be broadcasting them on the HoloNet, because how open he is with them. That they have those concerns about him, but at the same time, it's like, oh yeah, let's put him in literally what could be the most dangerous position for somebody who cannot control their emotions. It's like, do you not understand the stupidity of this? I mean, it just makes it one of those things where it's, when he starts being uncomfortable, and I'm going to get to this because we do have, it's actually a nice conversation. I kind of like that. Later on, Anakin and Obi-Wan talking. It would have made more sense if Obi-Wan were to be like, you can let Palpatine know that, like, we don't need this to be secret, that we have concerns and just want an eye kept on him. That we're supposed, and making the point, and this is one thing that when Anakin is first in there and he's like, why am I not being made a master, all that. If it were that the council said, we are supposed to be independent, we resent being put under him, but, alright, so we're uncomfortable with that. We understand the larger situation with the war, but we're going to want you to keep an eye on him because he is threatening our independence, and that we value so much that's what I ask him. And could even be you can tell him that. I mean, there is that element of there's no reason to keep it secret. Well, yeah, actually, there is no reason to keep it secret, because even with the explanation of, well, we don't think he's Sidious, but we do believe that Sidious is somehow positioned near Palpatine, which Obi-Wan tells him a little bit about later. It's like, okay, while that makes some sense, we believe Sidious is a moron. I mean, it's like, he's got a Jedi. It's like, if Sidious is not Palpatine and merely observing this, it's like, so this Jedi friend of Palpatine has put into the council, but is, like, also going to be his representative, so it's going to be close to him. I wonder if the Jedi are going to know now what Palpatine does. It's like, obviously, why would you ever doubt that? I mean, it is, like, there's nothing Anakin is being asked to do that you can't reason out just by looking at the situation. So the idea that they're like, oh, we need to keep this secret, is like, why? I mean, it would be like, if somebody were to take a good look at Padme, it's like, I guess you've been with a man some months ago. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's very obvious. The signs are there. You just need to actually look at the situation and you got to figure it out. And that does provoke me, but it's one of those things where this is poor storytelling, poor story construction, but it's just poor. It isn't bad. I can poke these holes in it, and I shouldn't be able to, especially because that is not a small one, in my opinion. That's not a small one. Like, if I wrote this, and then I were going back editing, and I spotted that, I would be rewriting chapters. I legitimately would, to either give a specific reason why he shouldn't, why this should be kept secret, or that no, go ahead and tell Palpatine. We're totally good with that. There's no issue with him knowing. So, yeah. Okay. So, in the previous chapter, I actually kind of misread it. I'm blaming how tired I have been, and the headache. But in the previous chapter, when it was Obi-Wan who suggested we focus on capturing Grievous, it seemed to me obvious that it would be Obi-Wan being sent to do this. Not just because of the movie, but also, well, I mean, really with the story construction, because we've only got 4 Jedi that we care anything about. Anakin, he's not going to do it. He is beat by Palpatine. Yoda, Mace Windu, and Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's the one who suggested the idea, so storytelling cliche number 3, or whatever number it would be, means he's the one that's going to end up doing it. But it's only in this chapter, which is the next day, it seems, or actually day even more than that later, this is when they actually decide that Obi-Wan is going to do this. But at the same, so we have that initial discussion where Obi-Wan gives that suggestion. Then we cut to Sidious talking to Grievous and specifically saying Obi-Wan is going to come to hunt for you. Skywalker too? No, just Obi-Wan. How would Palpatine know this? There is no reason. Especially when consider Mace does make the comment in that chapter. He has fought Grievous and, well, he survived. So it would seem then that Mace Windu would actually be the better person to send out in this. So why would it be Obi-Wan? There is no explanation here. And it's also the whole, how would Palpatine know? I'm saying there's no explanation for why it's Obi-Wan over somebody who would have more experience, Mace Windu, against Grievous at least. Whereas, how would Palpatine know is a whole nother question. And I am rejecting the idea that, he's just seeing it in the Force, because, like, why would he be... If the Jedi cannot see the future because of the dark side casting a shadow, why is Palpatine able to see the future from, even though it's the light side casting the light over it? I'm saying, it seems like, shouldn't those be reflective of each other? And I reject that Palpatine is just manipulating them with the Force, because they should be aware of that, and they should have strong enough wills to counter it as well. So, plus there's that whole thing that in Return of the Jedi was set up that because Hutt brains operate so differently, their thought patterns are so different from humans, that they couldn't do that. That they become immune. So in theory, a Jedi Hutt could manipulate another Hutt, could mind trick a Hutt. Well, Palpatine is human. Yoda isn't. Ki-Adi-Mundi isn't. Plo Koon isn't. And probably some others that I'm not aware of the names of. So it's like, are all of them, do they all have thought patterns that are similar enough to humans for that to work? And then as far as the whole, well, he just knows them that well. It's like, okay, I'm rejecting that as well, because that's still me, because that goes back to the whole, there's so many variables that he's just getting lucky with. Because, what if Obi-Wan were to just say, but Mace, you're a better swordsman and you fought him before and lived, so doesn't it make more sense for you to do that? I mean, I was in it. Yeah, I just fought him a few days ago, but I had Anakin with me. I didn't fight him alone, so wouldn't you be better? It's like, yes, I guess you're right. I should go and I'll be the one to hunt down Grievous. Yoda, you stay here instead of going to Kashyyyk. I mean, it's like, you could have had that happen. It's like, that is perfectly reasonable and logical. I mean, it's kind of like with Empire and Phantom Menace, it being flimsy and fragile. It's like the motivations do not clearly direct the story in this direction versus that direction. And and that's also why Palpatine's plans suck, because he seemingly is manipulating people, but there's never a setup that would be resilient to somebody's motivation, allowing them to go with a different direction, a different decision. That's like, if that would have happened, what would he do? Because now it's like, oh crap, Obi-Wan is still near Anakin. And that's his main thing. He wants to separate Anakin and Obi-Wan, because that will allow him to best influence Anakin. But if if Obi-Wan stays because Space Windu going out, now that plan is out the window. And it doesn't seem like things... I mean, Mace goes out, kills Grievous, war ends. He hasn't turned Anakin, which means that all that's... So it's like his plan fails because he didn't prepare for a completely reasonable decision to be made. It's a poor plan. It's a very poor plan. All right, let's keep going. Sorry, need to fix typo. There. Okay. Then we get some stuff with Bail Organa where basically a board is up to... Boards have been put up at the Senate to both report on how the war is going, which is confusing because if the Senate is getting true information but the HoloNet is being poisoned, then shouldn't they be it's a dumb idea. I'm sorry, that whole thing is such a dumb idea for how it is presented here. Going back to that other thing, the idea that the Separatists are poisoning the HoloNet so that the news is constantly showing the Republic losing when apparently they are not, that is something that should stand out very easily. But a solution there to how you can have that but not be caught so readily is if it were to happen just at specific times, which is not unreasonable. I mean, during various wars, you do jam communications. It would be kind of like that, where you are jamming, but it's in a much more sophisticated way, where you're preventing the correct information from moving about. Which does remind me of one thing that I'd have to look into it, but supposedly at least there was actually, I think it may have been like a university of Cincinnati or a university around Columbus, some university in Ohio, actually during World War II had an antenna set up powerful enough that if they needed to, and they never did, if they needed to, they could have pumped so much energy into that for a jamming signal to be felt in Europe that they could basically jam Germany from Ohio. That's scary. It's like that's a lot of power. But hey, if you got to do it, you got to do it. And just jamming like that would just be that they're dumping a whole bunch of energy into the spectrum such that there's so much white noise there nothing can be heard. That's very literally how that would be. Anyhow, Bail Organa sees this executive order up on that board along with the different stuff about the war, and is like, crap. Goes into a phone booth. I'm not even kidding. It's a public comm booth. It's a phone booth. Okay, I get that this was written and the movies were made at a time that cell phones were not particularly common. They did exist, but not so common. That's fine. That's fine. But I still think you could say a senatorial private communication booth where it is the senators would need to have a capability to phone home privately, that it goes to them instead of just a public comm booth. You expect Clark Kent to jump into one of these things and change his clothes. I mean, it's like, yeah. I mean, say, come on. You're making up terms for stuff. You're making up species just so that you're not referring to dogs and cats. You're doing that, but it's like, yeah, it's a phone booth. I mean, come on. You can't have something that is completely reasonable to exist even today. I can believe that in the U.S. Capitol, that there might be rooms there that a senator or a representative can go in and make a phone call that it's like, yeah, the door closes and no one else is in here but me. And it's basically all he needs. So, it's not clear what it is he calls, what it is that prompts him to do this. Mon Mothma is apparently who he calls. What's odd is how it's described that he suspected it could have happened the day before because of the new law that passed. But then it's only this second day when an order came down that now he's actually concerned. It's like, shouldn't you have been acting the day before? And the way it is set up makes it seem like it's Palpatine putting the Jedi under his office. Yeah, but it still is like, Bail, you're a senator. Were you arguing against it in the Senate? I mean, it's like, what is... what's going on here? This doesn't make sense. We do eventually get an explanation. Okay. So now we're to the scene where Anakin is finally allowed into the council chambers. He knows that the request has been made for him to be on the council as Palpatine's representative, and they've been keeping him outside as they talk, which I don't know why they were doing that. I mean, that is a kind of bad and thing to do. It would make more sense as we have to discuss things. We'll let you know when we need you. Like, it might be an hour. Like, yeah, we'll talk to you after lunch kind of thing. I mean, it's, expect to come in. Come on. Especially because it does build up his anger. Although he also is like, I mean, it both isn't. It's not anger for him. Just anger is essentially the word he's using for it. I think frustration might be the better word for it. That he has things to do, places to be, all that kind of stuff, and it's like, okay, can we get on with this? But then we get the whole, you will attend the meetings of this council, but you will not be granted the rank and privileges of a Jedi Master. What? In the movie, it's kind of that, and then I think there's never been somebody to sit on the council who's not a master. That line isn't in here, but we get a lot of other stuff that is... Aspects of it I like, aspects of it I don't. The main aspect that I don't like is the... Don't you hate it when you, know the word exists for what you're trying to describe, and you, kind of have it half-formed, but then you start talking and realize you got no idea what that word is? But basically, his personality splits. Not like he's crazy, but he wasn't even truly aware of speaking. It was as if someone else were using his mouth. And now, finally, he recognized the voice. It sounded like Dooku, but it was not Dooku's voice. It was the voice of Dooku's destroyer. It's like, I like how that's kind of described there, but it's also do we have to do this to him? Yeah, it's... Right before that, what he actually was saying was, how dare you? How dare you? It's like, what? It's like, what do you... I'm sorry, if I were one of the Jedi Masters, I'd be like, excuse me? What do you mean? I mean, it's like, I'm just confused, like, why are you actually saying this? We're the ones that are having to break custom, not you. And he went on, no Jedi in this room can match my power. No Jedi in the galaxy. You think you can deny mastery to me? And it's like, dude, this is almost a come over here and drop your pants. We're going to tan your hide a bit for saying this shit. What the hell's wrong with you, man? It's like, you think you're the most powerful? We're going to test that right now. Somebody get the belt. I mean, it's like, what the... And they take it too calmly, almost. The Chancellor's representative you are, Yoda said, and it is as his representative you shall attend the council. Sit in this chamber you will, but no vote will you have. The Chancellor's views you shall present, his wishes, his ideas, and directives, not your own. This is an insult to me and to the Chancellor. Do not imagine that it will be tolerated. And the Mace Windu says, take your seat, young Anakin. And it's just like, why is... I just... Until you get to Mace Windu's eyes were as cold as the voice from Anakin's mouth. Till you get to that, it seems like they're just completely calm and be like, yeah, we don't really care about this outpost. It's like, they should be caring, because it is deeply disrespectful what he is saying there. And even if... Well, if it was then believing that he is just reacting, he's not thinking about what he's saying, he is just speaking emotionally, then it would make sense if one of them were to say, are you sure you mean to say that? Or even I was saying that a bit more aggressively, just, are you sure you mean to say that, Anakin? And do you hear yourself? basically, we're not. We can forgive what you just said. Are you certain that that's really what you mean to say here? Although that might be going to be too condescending, but it is just Are you hearing the same thing I'm hearing, people? It's kind of what, yeah, I'm feeling with this. Finally, Obi-Wan does say, "Anakin, please," please just take the seat. And at this point, he suddenly felt very young and very foolish. Forgive me, masters. So at least he does calm down, but it is the whole, it took Obi-Wan saying that. It's like, I feel it should have been said a little bit sooner. And just because letting him go on like that, it's like, why are you doing this to him? It does not make me hate the character. It doesn't. They've been doing other things that have made me hate his character. This isn't one of them. This is more I don't like what you're doing to the character. So it's like, I don't put this on Anakin. I don't see this as his character. I see it as you're just making the character do something I don't think is correct. Or rather, the reactions to his character, which is still part of his character to a degree, would not... I don't think that those are correct. So, yeah. And then there's... he's like barely listening, but he finds it odd when he catches that Obi-Wan is going to be sent after Grievous alone. He's like, wait, why? Why would they... well, yeah, I'll just read the line. On top of everything else, now they're splitting up the team. And that ends up making more sense later on as well. Then when Kashyyyk is mentioned, I can handle it, he offered, suddenly brightening. I could clear that planet in a day or two. Skywalker, your assignment is here. Mace Windu's stare was hard as Durasteel and only a scrape short of openly hostile. Then Yoda volunteered for some reason the council didn't even bother to vote. Again, this is why are you... I mean, they did set it up that Yoda would be going to Kashyyyk, but still is why have Mace Windu's stare was hard as Durasteel? It's like, Skywalker, your assignment is here with Palpatine. I mean, it's like, you can't leave. I mean, that could even be the point, a specific point made. Because you are Palpatine's representative, you cannot go on missions anymore because you must be available for him always. That would have been actually very powerful because except for Anakin's desire to help Padme, he wants these missions. That could be a wedge that he could be like, oh shit. Yo, Palpatine, I'm not sure I want to do this anymore. Why? I really I'm a man of action, and you just made me sit at a desk all day. See, again, this is one of those Palpatine. How does that plan work if Anakin's like, I actually want to be out there doing stuff. I mean, I love you, man. Love you like brother. Love you like father. But I got to be out there doing stuff. And how could he respond to that? He wouldn't have a response aside from, but I need you here. So it's like that wedge would still exist. So yeah, it is poor writing because that is Anakin's motivations should have him wanting to go out there, except for being there to save Padme. Okay, except for that. Which is also odd because they do have a little bit of the whole he's obsessing over not being a master and then remembering it's Padme. It's the distance between his vanity, his pride being bruised, and Padme being mentioned is much shorter than it has been in one or two of the previous chapters. But it's still there, and I'm slightly loose. Oh, yeah. That's why he doesn't just ask. Because I get the whole, you will not be granted the rank and privileges of a Jedi Master. It's like, okay. I get that. That sucks. Question, though. I've been having these visions that have been deeply upsetting me. Yoda, I came in, I tried talking to you. That didn't really help me. Could I know this is Masters only, but could I be granted access to the archives? Because I really want to go through what we got there on interpretation of visions. I really want to go through that. I want to... This it's really troubling me, man. It's really troubling me. I want to figure this out. Can I be granted that? Because why would they say no? I mean, legitimately, there'd be no reason where it's like, just want to know about the vision stuff? Yeah, sure, we'll send that to your partner or something. I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, they have no reason not to, and him just asking for it should be enough. Because, I mean, in theory, even if it were oh, well, that's a privilege reserved to masters, it should still be but, I mean, that's not an unreasonable request. We can do that. I mean, that's a rule that shouldn't be without exceptions. So, yeah. I mean, obviously, it is to set up the whole, well, Palpatine will give him an answer. In fact, the next chapter is even titled "Not from a Jedi." So it's like they're setting that up, but it still is a one question, and potentially it's solved, and it's this falls apart. I'm saying his motivation. I guess a way to put it is that if his motivations are pure concerning trying to save Padme, then he should be comfortable asking that question. So his motivations are not pure, to be fair, but it still is. He was already thinking about talking to Obi-Wan about this, about getting Obi-Wan's help with gaining access. He can still ask for that. There's no reason not to, and he might be in a better position to make that request now. So, yeah, it's just weird. Okay. That's a lot of talking that I did for... I mean, some of these were notes. And I did do that. So now we get to Bail Mon Mothma, who, by the way, is not introduced. He's like, oh, yeah, he's calling her Mon initially, which I find a little odd, because I've always interpreted it as a title. Like, her name is something Mothma, and Mon is the title. I've always associated it as that, not as that's her first name. Because it's also, I'm trying to remember if in Return of the Jedi, I wish I had the book. I don't. My brother's still reading it. Because I would have grabbed it and started checking, actually, a couple things. But the way she's introduced in Return of the Jedi as Mon Mothma, why would you introduce her to the rebel forces? She's a rebel leader, one of the most important. Why would you introduce her to them with her first name? None of them should be calling her that, except for those who already know her. Like, none of them should be that familiar with her. So, Mon being a title and Mothma being her name would actually make sense there. But here it's like, hey, Mon, we need to get this sorted out. It's also a little funny because if I just said that, it's like, hey, Mon, and it's like, no, we're not going there. But it's so we don't really get an introduction for her here. It's almost like, oh, yeah, you know who she is. It's like, do I? Because I've not read this book before. But we do get an explanation for what it is. Oh, yeah, so those two are there. Padme is also brought in because she's another sender that has a powerful voice and should be bothered by what Palpatine has ordered. And she kind of is, but she also doesn't really like the idea. And there is also an element of... Okay. She has asides in this with... And he's my husband's friend and mentor, Padme thought. I shouldn't even be listening to this. It's like, if not for that, her reactions don't make much sense here. Because it's kind of like back in Attack of the Clones. Dooku could have made actually very reasonable arguments to her that the Separatists are at least not that wrong. But he doesn't with her. And it seems like, again, here we have a very good example of Palpatine is doing bad things. And Padme, you need to be against them. You've been against them previously. Why are you not now? Like, calling out her hypocrisy so she hopefully makes a decision to go against Palpatine. But yeah, I've known Palpatine for years. He was my most trusted advisor. I'm not prepared to believe his intent is to dismantle the Senate. By the way, he would, well, maybe after the events of Phantom Menace, but the governor, Bible? Something like that. I think he was the most trusted. Anyhow, why should he bother? As a practical matter, as of this morning, the Senate no longer exists. Is Mon Mothma saying to her. Now, Bail explains, Palpatine no longer has to worry about controlling the Senate. By placing his own lackeys as governors over every planet in the Republic, he controls our systems directly. He's become a dictator. We made a dictator. It's like, okay. I have a problem with this. Now, the argument is completely sound that yes, that does undermine the Senate if the governors are not local, essentially, so that they serve Palpatine, they don't serve the local system. Yes, got that. The problem is, and this is one of the things, if I had my copy of the original trilogy novels, I would have pulled it out. When Tarkin walks into the meeting room and he's talking about stuff, one thing that he says is that the Senate has been dissolved because now the local governors will have complete jurisdiction over the systems. Basically, there's no need for the local governments anymore. The imperial governors are in charge. That is literally what he's saying is happening here 20 years or so earlier. That's a problem. Because, yeah. It's a problem. You can't have the same thing happening twice like that. Because what are we supposed to believe? That Palpatine decided between this moment and when he actually declares it an empire that he reverses that decision? Why would he do that? There's no benefit to him doing that. I mean, if it's but the war ended. But he also declared it an empire. Why would he give up control now that he's the emperor? So, yeah, that reads very much to me as I forgot we already have canon that I need to be following and making sure I'm not overstepping on things there. And this isn't the only example of something like that in this chapter, by the way. Okay. Where is it? So then we get Obi-Wan and Anakin talking alone in the Jedi Temple. And by and large, mostly, I actually liked this. I do think it could have gone a little differently, a little bit better. But by and large, I do like it. For what is being said. Some of the asides that Anakin's having in his head, I do have a problem with. And I will explain that. But one thing I just want to check. Okay. So I'll get to the aside stuff soon, but Anakin talking, you know how kind he has been to me. You know how he's looked after me, how he's done everything he could to help me. He's like family. The Jedi are your family, Obi-Wan says. No, Anakin turned on his former master. No, the Jedi are your family. The only one you've ever known. But I'm not like you. I had a mother who loved me. That I actually like. Because it goes back to what I was saying with going through Attack of the Clones. I want Anakin to reject the Jedi because it's like, you're not actually... this is not a functional, this is not a healthy relationship I have with you. And he's kind of saying that here. It's kind of cloaked with the whole, I had a family. It's kind of cloaked with that, but it still is. He is basically saying, look, this isn't... I've never felt part of this as a family. You have. But I never have. Because it is the whole that they're talking about Anakin being put on the council, but not as a master, what the council wants Anakin to do. And I'd already been talking about some of that stuff already. That, it's like, they could just be honest. It's not unreasonable. But it's also Obi-Wan is specifically asking him, let me see if I got this here. They want me to, Anakin, they want me to spy on the Supreme Chancellor of the Republic? Obi-Wan, that's treason. And it's, no, not really. It's kind of is, but it's, we are sworn to the ideals of the Republic, the principles of the Republic, basically saying, well, no, we're not committing treason because we're following the Republican spirit, even if by law, technically, we aren't. Not a great argument there, but, Obi-Wan does try to explain that, no, it's not even that, it's just, we want you to keep an eye on him, who he deals with and who deals with him. So, it's basically saying, no, we're not looking for you to spy on him. We're just keep your eyes open, be observant kind of thing. And if there is something suspicious, let us know. Which is not inherently inappropriate. And actually what it ultimately goes to is Obi-Wan being like, I'm not supposed to be telling you this. Please do not reveal we had this conversation to anyone. Do you understand? I can keep a secret, Anakin says. Then he explains, that Mace had tracked Darth Sidious to 500 Republica, the apartment building that has Padme's apartment in there, yes, but also Palpatine's. It actually would have been funny if they had started to try to set something up here that, wait, could Padme be Sidious? I mean, there's no reason it couldn't be a woman, right? It actually would have been funny, because technically she should be as viable as Sidious as anyone in that building. Yeah, we think that the Sith Lord is someone within Palpatine's close circles. That is who we want you to spy on. Do you understand? Basically saying, it's not Palpatine. We think Sidious might be near him, and we want you just watching out to keep an eye out for him. Why, again, this something being kept secret? Why this would be considered secret? I don't understand. Especially when you consider Anakin is not emotionally strong enough to resist various temptations. So you need to prepare him for this stuff. And so telling him this would be good. I mean, the greatest risk is just him potentially spilling that to Palpatine that, well, yeah, they actually want me to watch out because they think the Sith Lord may be near you. It's like, why wouldn't Palpatine be... What harm is there in Palpatine knowing that? Assuming that he's not Sidious, that he doesn't know all that. It's like, what harm is there in that? There really isn't. The Jedi don't have a reason to keep that a secret from Palpatine. Now, from other people, potentially, but not from Palpatine. Because, as I said earlier, it's like, if Sidious is a separate person and is just watching this, he's like, oh, good friend of Palpatine's is now going to be his representative with the Jedi Council, so he's going to be even closer to Palpatine, and obviously very close to the Jedi. Also is a Jedi. Maybe that'll be Palpatine. It's like, obviously, come on. What I don't like, and there is, hang on, there was something more about this, wasn't there? Yes, but I need to get through this first. But also, I just spotted a typo I want to fix. I really need to be less worried about this stuff, especially when I lose sight of it. At least I know what it was. I just didn't see it. Hang on. Holy crap. Okay, I'm just gonna do that then. Apparently there's 9 instances of it. Ah, okay, there it is. In my notes, I didn't even realize it. Anyway, that's all. They are all fixed now. During this discussion, Palpatine's attempts to manipulate Anakin in the previous chapter or 2 chapters ago, don't remember which, start entering Anakin's head again. So, for example, the whole, we think that the Sith Lord is someone within Palpatine's close circles, a fiction created by the Jedi Council, an excuse to harass their political enemies. This is something Palpatine had said. What we're asking of you is not treason, Anakin. It may be the only way to save the Republic. This is the whole, if Palpatine is under the influence of the Sith Lord, he may be in the gravest danger. So we're actually asking you to keep him safe. If this Darth Sidious of yours were to walk through that door right now, I would ask him to sit down. I would ask him if he has any power he could use to end this war. I mean, those words are coming back and are seemingly fitting the situation, so Anakin is trying to lean more towards Palpatine. But I don't like this. I like how it ends, how that sets up an ending here. That's fine. But I don't, and I will get to that. I promise. But I don't like that Anakin isn't hearing Obi-Wan, he's only hearing Palpatine here. And he should be hearing Obi-Wan as well. Obi-Wan should be more or less equal to him. As important to him as Palpatine is. Even though they get along poorly at times, they are brothers. Okay? They've been together now for 13 years. Constantly together. Palpatine, not as much. He is there, and he's very important to him. But Palpatine is like a father or an uncle, and Obi-Wan is like his brother. And there's so much more there's much more there. So it's like he should be hearing this and should be understanding this and be taking Obi-Wan sincerely. But instead, it's only Palpatine's words that seem to be catching hold. He's not letting Obi-Wan's words challenge Palpatine. He's seeing Palpatine's words just challenge Obi-Wan's. And that, I don't like that, because there should be greater turmoil here. This is like, Palpatine's already won. It's like, that isn't what should be happening. We should be having the character development of Anakin having to choose between them. And, yeah. Okay. But I do like how it ends. Okay. So, all you're really asking is for me to help the Council find Darth Sidious. Yes. Obi-Wan looked relieved, incredibly relieved, as though some horrible chronic pain had suddenly and inexplicably eased. Yes, that's it exactly. Locked within the furnace of his heart, Anakin whispered an echo, not quite an echo, slightly altered, just at the end. So it is, Palpatine's words have been echoing, just... I would ask him to sit down, and I would ask him if he has any power he could use to save Padme. So... I like this setup, where now it is, okay, those echoes are making some more sense now, because Anakin is turning that to something to benefit him. Something that does matter to him, because he potentially doesn't really care about Palpatine, like, not compared to Padme. That he would do anything with Padme, Palpatine not so much. So, I like that. That's good there, but it still is... how it was written was feeling like Palpatine is winning, in a debate between him and Obi-Wan, even though I don't think that is how Anakin's mind should be processing it. That's not how he should be developing. And there's also the whole, he could still ask to see the archives. He could still ask and potentially get the information he wants, rather than being like, well, I would ask a Sith if he could help me save Padme. I mean, it's like, dude, why are you now comfortable with consorting with evil? I mean, it's you aren't. That has not been set up. That he would be comfortable. Having dealings with the Sith. There's nothing to explain that, except for like sheer desperation. But as I said, he has other options already, and these have not been explored. These have not been exhausted yet. And it's like, I would actually deal with the devil to save Padme. It's like this is not good. All right. Okay. Yep. Just a few more notes left. Then we get Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Mace talking again. And this I actually largely liked for what the conversation was. There is a little bit here that I don't necessarily care for. But it's basically Obi-Wan acknowledging this. I'm technically skipping a note. I trust him with my life, and that is precisely the problem, Obi-Wan said. For Anakin, there is nothing more important than friendship. He is the most loyal man I have ever met. Loyal beyond reason, in fact. Despite all that I have tried to teach him about the sacrifices that are the heart of being a Jedi, he will never, I think, truly understand. So, basically what's going on here, and there's a little bit more of it more later, that later on in this, I just don't feel like reading all that. Obi-Wan is basically telling them, we have just asked him to betray Palpatine. In other words, we have actually betrayed Anakin. And that is Obi-Wan's view. We have betrayed him by asking him to do something he feels is so wrong. How are we the good guys here? And we may have just broken his trust in such a way we will never get it back. And even that's why I don't think he ever will trust us again. And I'm not entirely sure he should. It's like, that is actually the whole conversation leading up to that, less one part that I'll talk about shortly, is really good. I like that point that Obi-Wan is arguing with them that, yeah, we just really hurt him. And that's not good. That we may have just made this situation worse, not better. But somebody had... Oh, no, it is right here. We don't always have the right answer, Mace Windu said. Sometimes there isn't a right answer. It's like, well, yeah, but are we doing the right thing? Because the right thing isn't to betray Anakin, his expectation from his friends. Betraying that is not the right thing. It doesn't matter if that would be the right answer. It's not the right thing. So when there is we don't know if we have the right answer, then you shouldn't be doing it. That's not a hard concept. Even for the Jedi. I'm going to keep skipping that one because just the other thing is on this page here. Master Yoda, you and I have been close since I was a boy, an infant. Yet, if ending this war 1 week sooner, 1 day sooner, would require that I sacrifice your life, you know I would. As you should, Yoda said. As I would yours, young Obi-Wan, as any Jedi would another in the cause of peace. Any Jedi, and Obi-Wan said, except Anakin. This is a false statement. Because the ending of Attack of the Clones, Yoda could have decided, I'm going to kill Dooku. Instead, he decided, no, I'm going to let Dooku leave, allowing this war to happen, because that will allow me to save Obi-Wan and Anakin. It's like, this is false. Like, we already know Yoda will actually allow the war to continue to save their lives. And yeah, that's actually a very major problem. Just like the whole, did you read A New Hope? Now it's okay, did you read Attack of the Clones? I mean, we already know the author didn't, because in Attack of the Clones, Padme says that now I'm only the second youngest queen, and then this was, I am the youngest, well, she was the youngest queen, of somebody else speaking. At least I think that was the case. But it still is like, I mean, you're already contradicting the canon, and it's like, okay, that's a small detail, not even in the movies, as I recall. This is exactly what happened in the movie that you're contradicting. And it does, I will also say this, though, it does get into the interesting concept of, in some cases, Yoda letting Dooku escape to save Anakin and Obi-Wan, it can be described as the moral thing to do. Because, whereas letting them die in order to stop Dooku, you can also make a moral argument that that is correct. The difference is, in order to save, well, Yoda essentially has an active choice right then to make. He can actively choose right now to save those lives right there. Like, this is, we know for a fact that is what will happen. He can stop and save them, but he will let Dooku go. By letting Dooku go, most likely the war will begin. And well, the war will continue. Technically, the war already begun. But the war will continue, and many will die. But he has no direct control over that aspect of it. Like, it could be that Dooku won't actually escape, that something else will stop him. I mean, it's like sort of bird in the hand versus two in the bush kind of thing, where he has a responsibility to protect life, just as being a Jedi. He can choose to ignore that and stop Dooku to protect some unknown number of lives, an abstract idea, or he can choose to uphold it to save the lives that are literally right there, and he alone is able to save them. It is a moral quandary. But this statement here that, oh yeah, we would totally sacrifice a Jedi to bring about peace, it's like, that you've already demonstrated that's not true. And it is a worthy moral quandary to have in a host of stories. Because you could even have somebody, have it be where somebody has to make that decision, say, decides to kill Dooku, which is, again, it's also, with that situation, it's like, I can choose, Jedi are to save and preserve lives. I could choose to save those lives and let Dooku go, or I could sacrifice those two lives and kill Dooku. That kind of really goes against the whole to save and preserve life. If it's I let those two die and I kill a dude. Well, I let those two die so I can kill a dude. It's like, yeah. But it still is, you can have that rationalization. And it's kind of the whole justification stuff I was talking about before with villains. Obviously Yoda is consistently a good guy. There's some stuff where it's like, that was not a good decision, man. You know, little green guy, but yeah. But you could still have it be very interesting, like, after he make that decision, if he were to fill him with guilt, that perhaps he did make the wrong decision, that, it's like, oh, well, more lives will save. Well, yeah, but you don't know who those lives are. You do know who you just let die, though. I mean, that could rack somebody with guilt and could be very interesting to explore in later stories. And other consequences as well. So it is a fun concept to explore in a story, as in the exploration is fun, not the idea of having to kill people. Yeah. But anyway, getting to this thing that I was skipping over. So this is Mace talking. Since the fall of Darth Bane more than a millennium ago, and Darth Bane was... Okay. Briefly to cover this, Phantom Menace does introduce Darth Bane, who, after the Sith formed by splintering off of the Jedi, they started fighting amongst themselves, fought the Jedi. They were all wiped out, except for Darth Bane. Because he was the smart one. He's the one who instituted the Rule of Two. And we get some of that here. Since the fall of Darth Bane more than a millennium ago, there have been hundreds of thousands of Jedi, feeding the light with each work of their hands, with each breath, with every beat of their hearts, bringing justice, building civil society, radiating peace, acting out of selfless love for all living things. I'm interrupting now Mace's words because it's like... that almost sounds like you're saying the Jedi founded the Republic. Which doesn't quite seem right. You'd think that they would have a more premier position than within the Republic. But in any case. In all these 1,000 years, there have only been 2 Sith at any time. Only 2. Jedi create light, but Sith do not create darkness. They merely use the darkness that is always there. That has always been there. Greed and jealousy, aggression and lust and fear. These are all natural to sentient beings, the legacy of the jungle, our inheritance from the dark. I'm sorry, Master Windu, but I'm not sure I follow you. Are you saying, to follow your metaphor, that the Jedi have cast too much light? From what I have seen these past years, the galaxy has not become all that bright a place. All I'm saying is that we don't know. We don't even truly understand what it means to bring balance to the Force. We have no way of anticipating what this may involve. So it leads up to that, but it's the way it describes Jedi create light, Sith do not create darkness, they just use it there. I'm not the most comfortable with the philosophy being suggested there. To me, by not being most comfortable with it, it sounds foolish to me. The idea as though you could progress to the point that greed, jealousy, aggression, lust, and fear don't exist, would be conquered. It's like, no, those things would always be there. It's you have to learn how to deal with those and reject the temptations of them. Like that's how you actually achieve it. It's not with every work of their hands, with every breath of their lives, blah blah. Acting of selfless love for all living beings, they have the light is built by that feeding light. Let's consider the creation of the Jedi Temple a work of art as that, and like that being an example. It's like, okay, but hey, I'm kind of losing my point because I hate it when I do that. Though creating that temple, having be a work of art, isn't going to serve to necessarily help people overcome those things, those weaknesses, the different sins, essentially. The 7 deadly sins kind of aspect to it. So, the teachings the building doesn't necessarily. Now, don't get me wrong, buildings can be inspirational and can be very, very valuable in that way, but you're not. I just don't see the Jedi as having such an inspirational building and also trying to help with the teaching to all living creatures to avoid these issues. So it just, and I don't like the idea. I consider it foolish, this idea that, oh yes, we can just escape these things. It's like, no, not really. That it is part of you, and also the inheritance from the jungle. Is that how he put it? The legacy of the jungle. It's like, well, not exactly. I mean, it's also just part of the human condition, regardless. I really, at some point, I will go through Shakespeare. Probably not for assigned reading videos, just for myself. Yeah, I mean, it's part of it is something that I had learned many years ago. Maybe I should try looking into it some more. That is important for people to be aware of. Hopefully it is accurate. It may have been at one point, maybe it isn't anymore. But it makes sense it would still be accurate. When talking about drug companies, that people focus on the concept that a drug company would never want to come up with a drug that would cure cancer, which is nonsense. There's too many different kinds of cancer. But let's say even just one kind of cancer. That they wouldn't want to do that because they lose money from that, from curing. It's like, that's not true. Because some of the companies, the majority of the money they make is off of over-the-counter things, like aspirin, painkillers. Because those people will always have pain. We could cure cancer, and there'd still be pain in the world, so you'd still have a product to sell. And it's kind of like that here, where it's like, there's still going to be pain in this world, which could then lead to greed, jealousy, aggression, lust, and fear. You're still going to have things that would cause those regardless. So, yeah, why are you... I just... It seemed foolish to me how it was written here, as though... And I just want to see... Yeah, that through just progress, that, oh, the Jedi, if we just had more time, we would stamp these things out. It's like, no, you wouldn't. They'd always be there. You're supposed to teach how to, well, first yourselves, but then others how to not be tempted by them, how to overcome those things. But you've not really been doing that because Anakin's falling to it. And do you have schools where you're teaching people? I mean, it just... I don't know. It seems like another one of those things where it's... You're describing something that the Jedi should be doing, but clearly they're not. Where an example I used back with the Phantom Menace, I think it was, the slavery on Tatooine. Slavery's against the law for the Republic. They're not in the Republic, but it's against the law for the Republic. And if you are just like accepting that, oh, well, that is some great evil, that is something that is harmful to life, that is a crime against humanity, then the Jedi, it would make sense, would attack Tatooine to disrupt its government enough to get rid of slavery and then leave. That's like, no, this is abhorrent. You're not allowed to do it. We're stopping you. Now you don't do it anymore. It's like that is something that is kind of aligned with their purpose, and yet they didn't. And also Padme, how it's like, why couldn't she have come back and been like, for our hero Anakin, because he did save Naboo, I'm going to come back here and I will purchase your mother's freedom. And she will be free to live on Tatooine if she wishes. If she wishes to come to Naboo as a guest of the state, she may. Or if she wishes to go to Coruscant and continue to raise you along with the Jedi, she is free to do so. But we never get any of that. And it just, yeah. I mean, that some of that I get why you couldn't do it. But it still is the whole, you say that these things are so important to you. You say that these evils that you see out and around here are so horrible, so terrible. But then where are your actions to actually do anything about it? Well, you don't have any. So yeah, it's... I just found that description of it odd. But I do like the whole, we don't know what it means to bring balance to the Force. And actually my argument, kind of, for my theory for how this is actually working, is that the Jedi are hypocrites. But that ultimately Luke is an example of that balance, in that he does have those sins within him, the capacity for them at least. But in Return of the Jedi, at the end, he throws away his lightsaber to refuse to fall to the dark side. But he rejects those things. He's not denying that his anger exists within him. He's not denying his desire for power. He's not denying that those are there. He's just rejecting them. He's not going to act on them because he loves his father and wants to see him redeemed. I mean, it's like that in a way is balanced, whereas it seems more like the Jedi in the prequel trilogy just simply believe that because they are the Jedi, they are the good guys. Even though we have also already had that, at least Mace does recognize, yeah, we're kind of all tainted by the dark side. I mean, it's like the whole, you're getting close to realizing what's going on here, and then it's like, nah, we're actually like not sure what's going on at all. And yeah, it just, yeah. It's not, as I said at the start of this video, the chapters in this part aren't provoking me to much hatred. It could just be I'm burned out on being provoked by this book, but it is... There is poor writing here, where it's like, even without that theory of mine for how this story kind of actually goes, it still is, why is he, the statement, I don't like from Mace, that this description of how the light and dark side work. Because there's also the aspect of, like, the light is always associated with life. It's like, okay, well, death is also part of life. In fact, the whole talking about how, the Jedi must feel free to sacrifice. It's like, okay, what specifically is the dark side? I mean, it still seems very nebulous what all this stuff is. And I wish that there were clarity there, because then it would make more sense. But yeah, and it makes it seem poorly constructed, poorly written to me. All right. I'm just a little curious. I'm going to do this now. Not From a Jedi already says the title for the next chapter. I'm kind of curious how long it is. Not too terribly long. Since definitely we are going to get Palpatine telling Anakin the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise. That whole thing. But and probably some other stuff there, but yeah, that will be interesting to see what more we get, because we did get more than what's in the movie in this chapter. We'll be interested to see what more we get in this chapter than we may get in the movie. All right, this video is already quite long, and I think I have been rambling some. Not as focused and as coherent as I wish I were, but it's just, yeah, how it's been going. See you next time.